What's up, little comers? Today we're joined by a master of disguise, documentarian, Twitch streamer, the bane of all cults in Spokane, and an all-around homo. When they're not live streaming, they're Agent 47 with pronouns, infiltrating hate churches, Shadow Moses, and CPAC, exposing the American fascist movement one mission at a time. It is with the utmost honor that I welcome the world's number one reprobate podcast, Dead Domain. Woo!
I am always happy to be in reprobate company, of course.
And unfortunately, one of our reprobates could not make it today. They had a worksite accident where an irresponsible driver drove through too quickly and hit them with their car. On an unrelated note, I got a ticket today. I was going too fast through a worksite, and they gave me a $50 fine. Guess how much over the speed limit I was? Guess.
3.
I was 13 over, except that bitch, Kathy Hochul, gave me a $50 fine for going 68 and a 55. Like, really? Like, yeah, I hit my co-host, but really? God. All this fucking woke.
Just imagine where those tax dollars are going.
Yeah, all that wokeness. And speaking of wokeness, we watched First Reformed, a 2018 film directed by, I never look up
Paul Schrader.
Holy shit. That's the first time that we've gotten the director without looking. Damn.
I'm glad to be a part of this momentous moment for you.
Yeah. That's why you have infinite clout and we don't. Because you know shit.
No, I love Paul Schrader's movies. He was one of the writers of the original Taxi Driver, and has done a couple other things over the years. Another movie of his I saw recently is Exorcist: The Beginning, or is it Dominion? The prequel.
Oh, that's the. Yeah, I heard that was.
Do you know
good.
the thing with the 2 Exorcist movies that came out of that?
Yeah, where it's like a real life story.
No, it's so there's 2. It was a prequel to the original Exorcist that was made in the early 2000s. But long story short, the production company, like the film studio, hired somebody to make the movie. They hated it. Mm-hmm. And they hired somebody else to remake that movie, and they basically had to start production from the ground up. So, and then after that second version came out, and this is going off of memory, but after that second version came out, they went back and re-edited the first one because the second one ended up being received so poorly. So the following year, they put out a alternate version of ostensibly the same movie, but not like they're fascinating to watch back to back because they have the same lead actor, take place in the same like time period and place, but stylistically they are so incredibly different. Neither of them are super great, but Paul Schrader did direct one of them that actually has some kind of thematic ties to this one, as far as like a man of faith trying to find his way through a hopeless and depressing world.
Yeah, I think with that we'll do the composting classic and go through the quick plot summary. Now, basically, if you've seen The Lorax, American Psycho, ISIS, and Christianity, and you put them all together, you get this movie. So, basically, a Protestant church, the fucking preacher guy there, he meets a environmental activist through the congregation, and he ends up meeting with him in private because the environmental activist feels a deep alienation and a sense of hopelessness, not wanting to bring children into the world, and eventually killing himself. The pastor was so touched by the, well, I wouldn't say touched, more so disturbed by the impacts he learned about climate change that he became disillusioned with his own practice due to the fact that it has a incestuous relationship with big business, the U.S. state, and evangelical corporations. And long story short, wacky adventures happen. And next thing you know, that guy's wearing a fucking... He's covered in barbed wire wearing a suicide bomber vest when the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, the bitch that charged me $50, is in the building. And then that cuts out. Was that a good plot summary? I think so.
I think it was adequate. You know, it covered, I think, the basic. I feel like people get the gist. You're painting a word picture.
Yeah.
And people get the vague shape of the film from it.
Yeah, they don't come here for the plot summary. They come here for me to tell a story like I did last time about how I said the N-word in 7th grade because my white English teacher said that when we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird out loud in class. She said that if we wanted to, we could say it.
No,
yeah.
That's not how words work, 7th grade English teacher.
And what happened is I blame myself partially for this, but I blame her fully for this. No one else in the group wanted to say it. We were reading in groups, so my dumbass offered it. I said, hey, I can just say it for you, because I ain't know better. I was 11.
Yeah. You're speaking of controversial words and takes. You're telling me that you don't have an evangelical background.
No, much worse. I have a background in the media, big business, law firms, and banking.
Why do all those things sound familiar?
I want you to think back to your teachings when you were in that fucking Nazi hate church.
Oh, Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're a woman of the book. A non-binary of the book.
Relative. So I was raised Lutheran, and I'm not practicing anymore currently.
I was kidding. God, I mean, look at you. Pull up a picture on the screen. You think that thing has been within a 50-mile radius of God? No. Oy.
Not if I can help it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you released the Satanism video today. Banger.
I did. I am pissing off. Heaven doesn't want me. Hell won't take me.
Yeah. Well, us Jews will take you.
Always glad to hear it.
Shalom. But
so this must have been. I'm curious because this movie is so incredibly focused on American evangelicalism. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how culty it appears, because from so much of what I hear from a lot of my Jewish friends is that is criticism of Christianity as like a very cult thing, which is funny because it seems like criticism of religion like that is like that goes all the way down. Because when I was raised Lutheran, that was the exact same thing people said about like the Catholics and the Mormons, is that they were cults. And then I have friends who are Catholics and Mormons or who were raised that way. And they've said the same thing about like, oh yeah, that's the way we talked about like Muslims and Islam. Yeah. And so I'm curious how culty this video or this movie was for you to like go through.
Yeah. So for context, my parents are atheist. I'm atheist, but ethnically and culturally, I associate with Judaism. However, on my mom's side, she's Quebecois, so there's a a Catholic tradition on that side of the family. So, and obviously I've encountered it when it comes to like a sort of family event and funerals and stuff like that. And it's always felt more like a religion to me in terms of like more familiar to me, the like Catholic vibe, where it doesn't feel like a cult at all, but the weird evangelical shit is so creepy and weird. I got such weird vibes off of this movie. Like, I don't know. I've always had an anti-Protestant bias, but
That's fair, yeah.
I mean, you turned your backs on Yahweh, the whole lot of you, but Hail Judas. But yeah, evangelicals are fucking weird and scary. And this movie does a good job encapsulating that. Like, I remember I paused the movie midway through because there was a song. It was like, "Are you soaked in the blood of the Lamb?" Yada, yada, yada. I paused it. I'm like, so is that meant to show like, oh, these are freaks, or is this just like a song that you guys sing?
It's like, I think that one is a little bit of both, because I think all of the song choices, because the movie is very sparse with its audio and music design, and so it uses a lot of songs that are sung by a choir to overlay scenes to kind of juxtapose what's happening, which they do in the last scene too. And I think it was a little bit of wanting to show off how just bizarre and creepy evangelicism is, but also like that is not at all outside of the purview of regular evangelical songs. Like a lot of Protestant songs have to do with war and battle, and this also that's a through line throughout the film, is that they play songs like "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," and towards the end when they're warming up the church for the big event, they are playing "Onward Christian Soldier," which is another like Protestant kind of quote unquote classic, I guess.
Real hood classic.
Yeah, real heads know.
The when it comes to like Christian music, I'm obviously I'm coming from like a weird circumstance. So the only Christian like Catholic, you would consider them real Christians. I understand that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Catholics get mad when you say that, but nobody else does.
Yeah. The only songs that I ever heard or fake sang along to were in French, so they could be just as weird. Yeah, that said, just the movie's a fucking vibe, because American evangelicalism, creepy, bad vibes.
Well, and so much of the movie, because this is a very vibe-based film, like it really, and I love Ethan Hawke. I'll pretty much watch anything he's in, and he does so well with the material here. Yeah. And it is just a incredibly despair. It's essentially the story of like a grown-ass man getting blackpilled. Like, yeah, going from like wanting to generally in his life do good, or at least believing that you can do good, and having so many things go wrong with him, so many things confronting him in his life. And instead of blaming necessarily himself or blaming others, he is looking at the conditions around him and examining, maybe for the first time, like how the structures of capitalism, how the structures of capitalism have affected his life, and how they've all interacted in various ways. From, at the beginning, he mentions his son being sent off to war with no moral justification and dying. Yeah. And so that's one one way that like capitalism has just fucked over his life. But then you have all of this stuff with the environment, and then you have all the stuff with these big businesses, like this business leader in the community trying to very forcibly get him to not say anything quote unquote political.
I know, and it pisses me off because it's like they're trying to come for a top spot. Like, big businesses are shit, man. Like, get the fuck off of our turf. Fucking bullshit. But
no, I think it's such a like I was telling you, I think it's such a concise look at how the sectors of, and it's not even, it's not even necessarily the evangelical right or the right wing of American politics, even though I think, there is like it touches upon some of those issues. But it's how these things that are so deeply ingrained into what I think a lot of Americans would see as our national identity, even if they don't take part in Protestant religion, even if they don't, take part in big business, like these ideas about politics and capital and religion are deeply, deeply entrenched in the psyche of the American consciousness. And I feel this is a movie about one person deconstructing that and realizing that the only way to draw attention to that or to stop that is through radical action of some kind.
Yeah, he speaks early on in the film about how a wise man leads his life in a constant state of cognitive dissonance. And you can tell as he utters those words, he knows he's wrong. And he turns his back on that statement as he comes to realize that the word of the Bible is, in his mind at least, and would be inclined to agree, wholly incompatible with the state of modern capitalism or class society holistically, but that's a whole other discussion.
Well, and actually that is, so I have a headcanon about this movie. Because this is one of my favorite movies. I've watched it a ton. It's such a rich film, even though it is about as subtle as a sledgehammer, but that's kind of that's kind of part of the point, is that it is meant to be less than subtle with its themes and what it's trying to convey because of the urgency and the totality of what it's talking about. But my headcanon for this film is that his son wasn't killed in combat, but that his son also killed himself. Because you never hear about how his kid died.
Oh yeah.
And and again, this is totally me extrapolating, meaning where there very well could be none. But when you see, he has this one person in his life who's very dear to him, who goes off to fight for a cause that he probably thinks is right, realizes it's wrong, and kills himself. And then you have this other person who comes into his life, and in the form of the man, the eco-terrorist from the congregation, who wants to do something right, but is trapped. And again, by entirely different structures in society, but still draws him to the same realization that he is powerless and leads him to killing himself. And part of the reason I say that is because Paul Schrader, the writer-director of this movie, did another movie with Oscar Isaac and Willem Dafoe. I think it was called The Card Counter, The Poker Player, or something like that. But a focal point of that film was Abu Ghraib. And as it was kind of revealed at the end of the movie that the two main characters, who had kind of been circling around each other the whole film through flashbacks and stuff, had been soldiers at Abu Ghraib and had carried out, the crimes against humanity that happened there. And so that is knowing that that's where the author's head went, or head is, when he's writing these kind of modern stories. That is just my little headcanon of, here's this reverend who has had two people in his life who wanted to do right, just like he does, who were so worn down by the structures around them, whether that's the military-industrial complex, whether that's climate change and the state of inactivism for just preserving the environment. Mm-hmm. They were so worn down by those structures that they felt the only recourse was to kill themselves. Mm-hmm. And that leaves him with this idea to eventually do what he does, which kind of, I guess, gets into spoiler territory.
Oh, well, our beautiful little comers, they know that we will spoil the movie. We already did. He pulls a little funny prank on the.
Yeah, I think I like how the ending is one of the least ambiguous endings I've ever seen, because it cuts to black very abruptly as he's dancing with Amanda Seyfried. And I think it's meant to be
in this movie, by the way. She was brilliant.
Like everybody's performance. Like the one of the other, I could really go on, because like I was saying, this movie, the messages and how it hits them are not subtle, but the performances themselves and so much of the dialogue hits at a subtlety that you don't see in a lot of just writing. Like there are little intricacies that I love as a writer, that get at just, and part of it's bolstered by the performances, but the awkwardness of some exchanges of navigating around like harsh topics, like the first meeting he has where he sits down with the guy from the congregation, like the guy just starts kind of hitting him with this tough information. And
the eco-terrorist.
Yeah. And he kind of like stumbles around it before getting more into it, because he's, psychologically, even if he doesn't necessarily know it yet, he is on that same wavelength. He talks about like this darkness inside of everybody and this deep depression. And so I think that's kind of this moment very subtly of finding a kindred spirit. But sorry, that's totally derailing the conversation.
No. That's the whole point of the show. And the conclusions that he comes to might seem foreign to American audiences, but when it comes to like the continent of South America, for example, there's a rich tradition of liberation theology and Christian socialist movements who arrived to similar radical conclusions that this movie ends up coming to.
Well, and it's in a weird way, it's also oddly prescient to me because of it reminds me of Aaron Bushnell, actually. Because so many people, and when that happened, I did a stream, and so many people in my comments are saying, oh, he's not a hero, he was mentally impaired, nobody in their right mind would do this. And it's like, look around you, what is crazier, the shit that we are putting up with right now in society, the stuff that people are allowed to get away with, the fact that Like even look at what's happening with college campuses, where ethics and philosophy professors are being tackled to the ground and snipers are on the rooftops.
In my city,
in your city.
Yeah.
Like, what is crazier, that or somebody trying to draw attention to the suffering and deaths of tens of thousands of people? And that's kind of like I look at the character Ethan Hawke plays with a similar amount of sympathy, this understanding of like, nobody will do anything and nobody will pay attention unless you say it loud enough. And even then, like, nothing is guaranteed. And that's
to the extreme. And then even then, the spectacle of self-sacrifice is often recuperated within capitalist hegemony. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Like, and that is like, it manifests as, saying stuff like Aaron Bushnell wasn't in his right mind. It would manifest in the lore of this movie as, here was somebody who was deeply disturbed. Here he kept a journal. He did all these things. But in reality, he's not like he is a deeply troubled person through his own struggles, through depression.
I do want to add a disclaimer to this discussion. Adventurous action is pretty much universally politically ineffective. Like, the propaganda of the deed is ineffective. I just want to make that clear with this discussion, but we're talking about their intention behind these acts.
I don't want to say that, like, you know, oh, this is the action that people should take, because I don't think that at all. But you come to understand.
I just don't want to get
don't get it twisted, for sure.
I don't want to get TOS one, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea too. But
absolutely. But you, through this movie, you come to, like, you come to, like, from the opening, you can see that this is somebody who is absolutely incredibly depressed, going through a really shitty time in his life. Alcoholic, has cancer, like, just real fucking having a rough time.
You see his house towards the start of the third act, and, like, one room of his is just a chandelier and a chair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like hyper atomization that he's experiencing.
Yeah, he basically lives in, like, Raiden's room from Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, it's just, there's just nothing in there. He has given his whole life to this church, and he's coming to the realization of, you know, what this church actually means in the scheme of, like, the church as a capitalist entity, and then also as a pawn in this greater socio-political scheme.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that you come to understand so well through the movie, and this gets back to kind of the Aaron Bushnell thing, is you come to understand so well why he's depressed. And it's not just through, like, oh, you know, I lost my kid, or, oh, you know, I'm an alcoholic, but it's these other confronting realizations about modern society, the things that I think more and more, like, when you see headlines about, like, oh, more and more people, more and more youths are depressed, more and more people are depressed. Yeah, exactly. It's like, that why
there's no alternative.
Exactly.
I feel as if millennials and what was the generation that came before them? Gen X? Is that correct? I feel like those were two generations without hope, really. And when it comes to just this feeling of there being no alternative to the neoliberal status quo.
Well, and as much as I feel like Gen Z has started to radicalize in a hopefully different direction, I see that same kind of apathy, and it spreads. You know, it's an apathy that I think even manifests in the ways, because, you know, for so long, people, whether it's anthropology or political studies, have looked at how millennials and how Gen Z kids handle humor. And, you know, the kind of Dadaist memification of the absurd, and you know, just the kind of shit that the boomers don't get. And when I look at things like, you know, you see it going around Twitter every now and again, where it's like a video of a meteor the size of the moon crashing into Earth, and the comment is like, what would you do if this happened? And it's stuff like that I look at, the blending of that kind of apathy to current conditions, and acknowledge that, like, you can't really do anything about it, but a blending, or a, you know, maybe even a coping with that kind of absurdist humor.
Yeah.
And I think, like, those strains, like, you're absolutely right. Like, they have run certainly since Gen X.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it is the hopelessness furthering or the hopelessness lessening. It's just sort of the dialectic advancing, I guess. But as a sociologist, it's perplexing.
I would say it's a hopelessness. I wouldn't even say progressing. I would say it's become more specified. Yeah. And I think that has helped Gen Z to realize, you know, how to organize, how to radicalize, how to, you know, advocate for different action. And, you know, time will tell how effective that kind of call for change may be.
Join
But
the IWW, by the way. Haha, quick. Join the IWW.
Quick plug, yeah.
This isn't an IWW broadcast, but I'm an officer at the IWW. And you should join. God bless America. And God bless you. All right. Now, I think what you're saying is kind of encapsulated in why I find it to be super fascinating. The recent memification among, I sound like a boomer. I'm not even early Gen Z, but I sound like a boomer saying this. The recent memification of Sisyphus by much of Gen Z I find quite interesting. Is a symbol of that
struggle,
atomization. I think that the movie has a lot to say about it.
It really, and it's fascinating because it is, in many ways, and one of the reasons I love it is because this movie speaks to such a universal, it speaks to such a broader frame of reference than just, what we're talking about, like a Gen Z audience or a younger audience. It is speaking, making these like allegations, not even allegations, but these observations, probably a better word, about the state of American society, why it is the way it is. Yeah. But it is doing it all in a language, both visually, rhythmically, just through the storytelling, in a language that most people, white people in America over the age of 40, will understand. They understand and recognize the iconography of Protestantism, of big business, and stuff like that. These structures that have dominated largely the discourse surrounding their entire lives.
Yeah. Within this movie, the sort of distilled spectacle of the bourgeoisie is encapsulated within the fucking Dr. Seuss ass named character named Bulk, which bulk mulch, bulk pencils. That's fucking funny that they named the big evil guy Bulk. But
I mean, like, it is, here's the thing, it's very funny, but then, like, it's one of those things that I look at and I'm like, okay, but one of the richest, dumbest, most, one of the people who is currently enabling so much evil and radicalization in the worst ways in the world,
and bringing back
his name is Elon Musk, like the dude who runs Daily Wire, his last name is Boring. Like, sometimes nominative determinism wins out. Yeah. Like, it just does.
Wait you hear, there's this guy who led Germany. His name was literally Adolf Hitler. I mean, like, come on. What do you think he's gonna do?
Probably not go to art school.
Probably not. But they have Bulk is funding the church, and he gets upset because when the Ernst, the pastor, holds a funeral service for his eco-terrorist buddy who did a Kurt Cobain impression in a park, his friend asked him to have the choir sing a what was the song? It was I think it was it was a Neil Young B-side, but it was some kind of protest song. It's some Neil Young song about hugging trees, and spreads ashes in a very polluted upstate New York area with broken up ships everywhere. And Bulk owned the property. He was not happy with it. So he asks for a apolitical service, which I think is incredible, because I do truly believe that the majority of Americans think that religion and politics are wholly independent. and like the Bible and Torah are apolitical. It's preposterous.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I think you encapsulated that pretty good. It reminds me of CPAC though. In the CPAC video I did, like, it was just one of the most surreal things I'd ever witnessed. Was I went to a dinner at CPAC.
The Ronald Reagan dinner. Say its full name,
yes,
goddammit.
The Ronald Reagan Memorial Dinner.
How much was it?
God. $500.
What'd you get? That must have been some tasty grub. 500 buckaroos.
No. It was fine, but like, if I had paid, because there's hundreds of people in that room. If I had paid, like, gone to a nice restaurant and gotten it, I probably would have been pissed. I was so beyond like emotion at that point though, because I had been wandering around CPAC for 4 days.
Your grinder was going off the hook.
Yeah, my grinder just popping up. Like, I was just done. Like, I had put emotion behind me. But there was this moment in the Ronald Reagan dinner where they're, because they have speakers who come up and are like the headliners at that event. And to warm up for that, they sang 3 songs, and it was just one of the most concise, damning looks at how entwined all of these aspects are in like the psyche of the American right, where the first song they sang was the national anthem, which, like, whatever, standard. They do that at ball games. Like, who cares?
I do that before.
The second one. Yeah, and whomst among us has not?
God bless America. They've given America. I wouldn't be fucking if it weren't for America. So,
yeah, exactly. You always remember where you came from.
Yeah.
The second song was "How Great Is Our God," which was like it was like a radio pop version of the kind of song that you would hear in one of these Protestant churches.
The Catholic side is just seething right now, and I'm cursing all of Protestantism in French, but
and then the third song was "Trump Won and You Know It," which is a song by conservative. Yeah, obviously. And it was just such a, like, back to back to back, no interruptions between them, just like God or country, politics, God, money, Trump, like, just all infused together into one like 12-minute sprint of just an oral cacophony that, it was a nightmare, but it was so surreal to see. It's one of the things I enjoyed is a strong word, but one of the things I found valuable at CPAC was just how, like, accurately.
It was the spectacle of religion in display rather than religion in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. And how that merges with politics. And I think that's like you're saying, that's another thing that this movie like nails on the head. Yeah,
I've done an academic conference on Nazi propaganda, and it's very interesting because you see a tokenized religion within a lot of Nazi imagery, and it's always put alongside a nation in fear, just a sort of even more grotesque version of of that somehow, because it's more pathetic in a way that's hard to describe. It's like pop country. Fuck, man.
No, yeah, you're not wrong. It's like I saw at CPAC, it is something that has been commercialized. Yeah. Like, and of course it has. Like, that's the way you're fine. Stop it, dog. That's the way.
Let the dogs out.
Like, this society works. That's the way the structures have built themselves up, is to commodify literally everything they can. But like, it's a great movie, but it is also like, it's a heavy one.
Yeah. And I think that it's good to think about this movie as descriptive rather than prescriptive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how any religious figure in that sort of right-wing corporatized evangelical sphere lives with themselves, because they have to know that they're lying to a certain extent.
Well, I think, and that's the essentially, like, you know, if you want a elevator pitch for the movie, that is kind of the pitch, is like, what if a evangelical pastor realized the evil system he was taking part in, like, and I think so many people, like, it's this almost alternate form of morality where you can make concessions as long as you continue to believe that you are in the right, whether that's, you know, like, oh, we're supporting Israel, so, you know, okay, if 10,000 Palestinians have to die because we're supporting Israel, like, at least we're supporting the ones that, you know, everybody has told us are on the good side.
Like,
yeah, or like something like that. It is this kind of, like, I can't, you know, pretend to be in the head necessarily of the average evangelical, but I feel there are so many.
You did a very good job on the
I sure do try
YouTube channel that you're gonna see in the top of the description.
I do try.
Don't forget to ring that bell.
Absolutely. Set reminders.
I'm sorry to interrupt with that. What were you saying?
Oh, it's okay. I forgot. I was going on a tangent again.
Whatever. Yeah, but I was gonna ask. All of those fucking Protestant churches have the same name. Like, what the fuck was the name of the one that you were part of? Like, new
not Faithful Word.
Baptist.
Oh, the New Independent Fundamental Baptist. Yeah.
Oy vey. What a.
Yeah, and their church was. Oh God, Fellowship. Oh, I can't believe I've forgotten that.
Oh,
Sure Foundation Baptist Church. Sure Foundation. Yeah.
1 second, I'm gonna cut this out. I have someone yelling for me, and I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna go fill my water real quick, so it'll be perfect.
Okay. Okay, I got surprised with Chick-fil-A.
Oh, well, I was going to say nice, but yeah, if you're not paying for it, I guess,
Fuck it, dude, okay. I'm not going to lie. I think boycotts are fucking dumb, you know?
They are.
I wasn't paying.
It's this weird, like, they have never made, well, I don't want to say they've never made a difference, but like, because people
make a
know
difference. You can say it.
Well, I would say that, you know, the conservatives would hear that and be like, oh, well, you know, we got Target to stop doing stuff, but like, that was less boycotts and more bomb threats.
Dude, they were fucking, you heard the song. What Target did was messed up. They were targeting Target. Yes, they target kids. That was messed up.
So true. Gosh, that was
Forgiato
what was his
Blow.
name? Yeah, I met Forgiato.
I
had my picture taken with him.
You met the Big FB? Dude.
I did. I one of my pictures I took with him made it into the CPAC video. I think it was in part 1. That was when I was walking around and I ran into Mike Lindell too.
Did you hear about Forgiato Blow's woke cousin?
No, but I would be incredibly interested to hear about him.
His name's 5Giato Blow.
Damn.
That's why I'm a fucking comedic genius.
Vaxxed and everything, I bet.
Yeah. Motherfucker probably has pronouns and shit. Yeah.
But no, broadly, I think like boycotts are very. It's always been to me very similar to the way people treat like veganism, where if you are eating vegan to be healthy for a variety of health reasons, or just through like you object to eating meat, like that's totally fine. But it is not an act of protest to like not eat a hamburger, because like that there is already hamburger meat out there being made. Like somebody else is just going to eat that burger.
Oh yeah, and there's still
it's and I feel that's kind of the same thing when people get really, really serious about boycotts, and then they start like harassing someone if like you drink Starbucks or something.
God,
and it's
the
like
fucking Starbucks shit is so dumb. Like
and it's
more people need to
like
call it out
I can't,
because it does so much to I'm convinced it's a fucking psyop because it does so much to delegitimize the pro-Palestinian movement.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
like
Starbucks
it makes
isn't even
people
fucking
look.
Israel. Emily, and you were drinking at Starbucks before? Why, you hate yourself? Go get an actual cup of coffee, dickhead. Like,
well, and it's not even that so much as it's also the idea of like when people, because I know people did it for like movies and stuff too, and they'll be like, oh, hey, don't go see this because Warner Brothers supports Israel. And it's like, dude, do you want to take a look at literally every other massive corporation or all of their subsidiaries, which probably either do business or have supported Israel?
like genuinely,
like it's
if you think that
it's
way,
it's all bad.
Yeah, the only conclusion you can come to is just like shooting yourself. Except you would be supporting the military-industrial complex if you bought a gun, so you can't even do that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just
Speaking of being black-pilled,
yeah. Oh my God! Imagine the rat limb that won't that doesn't want to live anymore, but they don't want to support the military-industrial complex.
oh, the conflict.
Which I think this movie really speaks to.
No, it does, and it also speaks to another phenomenon. Which I've definitely noticed in leftist circles, and that is the kind of left-leaning, I guess, radicalization of former military members, which is something you see a decent amount of. And granted, there are certainly a contingent of military people who come back and they take jobs as cops or mall security or whatever, so they can, because they're in it more for the power dynamics.
Like people who are. Who did it because they wanted to, but without giving too much away, I don't want to dox myself. I helped run a community center in my city and underserved area, and it's run like a worker co-op. It's commies all the way down, and we get a lot of vets who are just as radical as me coming through. Because they experience this, I almost want to say extreme dysphoria of giving your life to a lie.
No, it is this dissonance, and I think it hits at broadly something that a lot of former evangelicals, people who are raised evangelical, people who are raised as somebody who is raised evangelical and incredibly conservative, like the best allies I've ever had. It's one of the reasons why I always, like, whenever people are like, oh, you can't, don't ever trust if somebody had a right-wing phase, if somebody had a phase with the alt-right, like, you can't ever trust them. Is like, no, because guess what? Like, some of the best people are the ones who have been, like, who know that shit inside and out because they've experienced it.
Do you know what Engels did for a living? Like... What the fuck are you talking? Like, it's ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
And it's just anti-working class, frankly.
Well, that too, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's this whole issue of Now you got me talking about the online left here. But people, I guess, unfortunately, I'm becoming a part of the online left. God help me.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different, like, it's so,
But,
you want to talk about atomization, like, damn.
But people treat it like it's a it's like lunch table politics. Like, ooh, you sat with him, you can't sit with us. And it's so cringe. It's like, shut the fuck up. Do you think I like, every person I work with on a picket line? No, dickhead. But I take what I can get, and I realize that when we have a united material interest, you're my fucking ally, right? And that's not to ignore. That's not to say that we should unite with reactionaries, but that is to say that if you're sitting at the libertarian socialist table, you shouldn't be throwing your food at the Marxist-Leninist table, and vice versa. It's just like so cringe and dumb.
Yeah, it's everybody wants to have their perfect, like, they've got it figured out.
Yeah.
Every, third year college philosophy student has the answers to all of America's problems, and anybody who steps out of line with that, well, they're obviously, paid opposition or working against the cause, or a tanky, or, pick a name
woke scold,
woke scold,
problematic because you
cry bully, like whatever.
Joke. It's so dumb, and
it really is.
It's just this this really dumb culture of bullying, and it's just like anti fucking worker. Like the expectations are inconsistent and ridiculous. But we're gonna zoom past that whole can of worms.
No, yeah, I feel like I could be here for a long time talking about that.
And it's sad because, like, I've been behind the scenes with a couple spheres of YouTube, and it's like pretty much everyone agrees with me. It's just, it's just that's financially encouraged.
Well, and there's the other thing of, like, there is in every space on every side, there are always going to be people who will look at anything in the worst faith possible. They do not have charitable interpretations. And you see it when conservatives start to eat themselves alive over, just the most inane, dumb shit. And you see it all the time on the left when, like we were just talking about, where somebody gets canceled because somebody, like, they had a lunch with this person, or this person had, this or whatever.
And I'm going to sound like a right-winger here. It's also alienating to people because, like, it creates this culture of, like, you're a stand-up, right? You do stand-up? Yeah. It creates this just, like, anti-comedy culture.
It really does. And I just put out a tweet that unexpectedly blew up today about, I was talking about Ian Fidance, or a comedian has a joke that is kind of gross and sexualizing trans women, but it's also not saying, like, it's not trying to depict all trans women as, like, I basically said that, like, hey, this does more than people realize for normalizing ideas of, like, trans romance as people, like, just being normal.
I say this as a trans woman. The idea of a dainty woman with a big fat cock is objectively hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like there's something to be said for like, hey, you need like everybody should be able to laugh at themselves, and that kind of rhetoric is disambiguated all the time in comedy, where you get people who say like, oh, I make fun of everybody, but then they really only make fun of like Jewish people and black people.
I mean, the Jews were so fucking funny. I mean, come on, like, can you blame them?
No, it's fair. I mean,
the tunnels, like, every Nazi got a pass from me that day because it was just bangers. The tunnels are objectively fucking hilarious. New York is still on top, baby. But the thing for me when it comes to comedy, as someone who does comedy, the biggest thing for me is problematic humor works well when the intent of the joke is to be funny, right? It doesn't work when the intent is to spread a bigoted political
agenda.
Message. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, it's like, to go back to middle school, it's like dead baby jokes. It's like nobody who made a dead baby joke about like, how many babies can you fit into a blender, like whatever.
I don't know.
Nobody who made those was going home to actually blend. Like nobody was actually serious about that. The entire point of it was to be puerile, yes, to be, subvert in the minds of middle schoolers, I'm sure, subversive and edgy and dark. But at the end of the day, it was to make people laugh, whether that was with half-hearted disgust or not is kind of irrelevant, because it's something gross, stupid, dumb. But at the end of the day, it is just a joke. There is no serious intention behind it. Now that is entirely different from somebody like, I've looked at on my channel, we've done a series looking at conservative stand-up, and there is one set from J.P. Sears that we looked at once that is essentially just like basically encouraging violence towards trans people for using the wrong bathroom, like just openly.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're a fan of Big Joel.
Yeah, I love Joel.
Everyone fucking loves Joel. He just seems like the nicest man. Also, like what? I love him. But he did a video on it, and the one Roseanne, her stand-up, it was just her going on a rant.
I'm surprised. I watched that video too, and Roseanne's special, I watched all of that on stream, and like I said, the highlights are on my channel. But there is a joke in there that I'm surprised Joel didn't even touch, and I imagine it had to be for time because that video was already pretty long. But there is a joke she made, and I can't even repeat it because it is so. It's not racist or anything. It is just like so sexually disturbing and vile. I can
censor out bits in it with cartoon noises, like Looney Tune stuff.
It is,
if you want.
So, no, I have to now because of the context, but like. It's so like I spent minutes like not wanting to think about it because it was calling it a joke. First off, is just not accurate because her entire quote unquote special on Fox was just her whinging and yelling, and it was actually the applause got more sparse throughout the entire thing. Like it felt sad. It felt like going to the dark, like a really bad place, and they had like this.
There's no talent in
like,
it. Like let me do a conservative joke for you right now. When you call the trans woman meetup.
What?
Target practice.
I mean, that's the level that she's working at, and one of the jokes, and hers were a lot more boomer. Hers were a lot more like, oh, my kids don't talk to me, which is part of.
Fucking funny.
Oh, it really, like it's just fucking sad. It felt like a nightmarish dream, really. Like just like somebody screaming off the stage things that aren't funny, and then this canned laughter from the audience, like just this uncanny, unnatural, like Twin Peaks-ish.
It felt like a David Lynch film.
Yeah, it was very like surreal. But the joke that she made that was so heinous was about something. I don't even remember the context. I just remember her talking about how modern doctors are like Mengele, and something about injecting something into a 6-year-old girl's, and those were her words. Those were the words that she used. And I was so, and like the audience did not like, I could tell by the way she phrased it, it was supposed to be a laugh line, but the audience did not respond. And I had to pause the stream because I was so like just viscerally disgusted at that.
Yeah, I think that every conservative quote unquote comedian like gets to their level of status and then they end up crossing a line, and it's always something kind of arbitrary because they're doing what they did before, except it just ends up not sitting right for whatever reason. Who is that one fucking white guy, the real loser? He had the black eye
narrows
joke.
it down.
The one that was like,
was it Crowder?
No, it was some Netflix comic. He opened up his set with a joke about a waitress with a black eye should get sent back to the kitchen. Some shit like that. He was a conservative comic, and it didn't sit right with people, and he got canceled over it. And that's why these their careers are always just so short.
Well, and so I actually used to, when I started doing comedy, I was working in a comedy club, and so I saw a lot of traveling comedians come through, and I've talked about it on stream before, so like fans of mine will already have heard all this, but the amount of middle-aged white dudes who have sets that revolve around talking about the things you can't say anymore, and the way people buy into that shit it's bonkers to see firsthand, because they will say stuff. And I mean, I'm talking about entirely different comedians, entirely different audiences. And you take any of their 3 shows and all they have to do is come out and say like, oh yeah, there's some things you can't say anymore. Like, and then just do like, oh, I'm not afraid of being canceled. Like if I offend you, like too bad. And of the dozens and dozens of shows I've seen, I've literally never seen anybody walk out at being offended. All I've ever seen from that is people like that gets the crowd hyped up. Doesn't matter if the comedy after that is mid. They are hyped at the idea of offending people.
Yeah, like so many of the open mics I've been to consist of divorced women who just talk about the fact that they're women. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
You know it if you know it. And guys who drove there in their truck. Or,
oh my god.
And the third one is gay men who the fact that they're gay is their whole thing. So I guess
that's been like my phase kind of lately on the open mic, and it's not. I've been telling okay jokes that just haven't been hitting with the crowd.
Yeah. I had one that was a stinker. I showed it on this podcast. My co-host liked it. I'm not gonna do the whole setup. Basically, the joke is that if a divorced dad can afford a fucking Corvette, he can afford to fly to Libya and become a warlord slave owner, and the kid will like him more because he won't have to do chores. It's
always funny. One of my favorite bits that I do sometimes is if it's because, you know, if you've been to open mics, even if you haven't ever gone up, like, you know that sometimes there's just a fucking weird crowd. Like sometimes there's just a weird energy to the crowd. Where, like, you know, even the kind of vets of the scene, like the good stuff they're throwing out is just getting no play. But you can always tell the comedians in the audience because it's a lot of the most sick, twisted shit that nobody else will laugh at, but the comedians will laugh at, because it's just something they haven't heard before. It's something weird to them, and it's always funny to on those really off days to point out, because it always gets the irony is that pointing it out that the comedians are the sick fucks that are laughing at it always just gets a laugh from the comedians.
Yeah. I mean, like I use that as an example because that's a joke that's problematic for the purpose of being funny first and foremost, right? I think
I have one of my favorite jokes. I share it all the time, but I say the F slur at the end as a punchline, and it makes people equally uncomfortable, but also gets a lot of laughs, and it is for the purpose of being funny, and it works.
Oh yeah, and it's subversive. It's good, and I think there's so much of the left, I think, makes it a difficult environment to be funny, unfortunately.
Well, and because you don't want to, and that's been a problem for me, because I like comedy. I don't ever go out with the idea of like, okay, I'm going to offend people. I like to occasionally dance around the idea of offending people. Like I have a joke that, oh God, I have to, here's the thing, I have to tell it right, because if I don't tell it, it's actually racist. But
that's how you know it's a good joke.
It's so, because the setup is that, it's kind of in character of like a well-intentioned lib who's just like confused about how to not be racist,
which is why we had you on the show.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my role.
Yeah.
But the setup is basically like being a white man in America and getting called racist and being canceled for it is almost as bad as being black in America.
True.
And that is the thing where, like, that's the kind of joke that all my black friends in the audience will laugh at. And then, like, the middle-aged people who came to the open mic sitting up front are just, like, not on board with.
Dude,
and it's like there's so many different audiences there.
Yeah, and that's why a lot, like, the infighting most of the time is so cringe, because it's not like minority groups that are usually taking issue with it.
No,
it's Vosh and Hassan can make all the jokes about trans women that they want, in my opinion, because as long as they're funny, I know it comes from the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that is, there is this kind of, you used the word woke scold earlier, and like there is this like hyper sanitized, and I think it comes from, and it's the same, I think it comes from a very similar place that a lot of queer discourse comes from, where a lot of people get incredibly like uptight, no forgiveness policy about pronouns and stuff like that. I think it comes from a lot of people. Like, go to any queer like friend group or group of, like, it can be all trans people. That it's not that big of a deal for people who go to these groups, who go to these like things in real life. And you see the same thing in comedy. Is like, if somebody goes up and makes a joke that is fucked up in the wrong way and it doesn't hit, generally I can already tell, though, if that person is, if it's coming from a bad place or if they just told a shitty joke, if they just fucked up and it didn't go the way they wanted. Yeah. And it's kind of a similar thing where I think a lot of people who are out constantly criticizing and constantly critiquing, much like the people who are out there constantly trying to pronoun police and do stuff like that, they're predominantly pretty young, pretty enthusiastic, which is good. Mm-hmm. But they're coming from a place of inexperience with like actual in-person organization and meeting up and understanding other people.
They feel the way the pastor does in the movie in terms of just this powerlessness in the world around them, except instead of strapping a bomb to the chest, the way that they feel like they're making a difference is by tone policing people on Twitter.
Yeah, and that's...
And I think,
like I was saying,
I don't blame them for it. Like, the thing that's difficult is, like, as vile as the infighting can be, it becomes difficult to blame a lot of people for it, because it's just young people that feel like social outcasts, and this is how they exercise authority. It's sad.
I completely agree, and I think there's this kind of, like, it happens with so many people, and I think, again, it happens predominantly with a lot of young people in high school or college, where whether they're using politics as their, like, hyperfixation or special interest, so many people make the thing that they're about their personality, and that's universally true. Everybody has done it at some point or another, whether it was in middle school or high school, whether, you know, it was Halo or fucking Marxism. Like, there is, at one point or another, most people have had their thing. And the problem is, so many people don't realize that the discourse around these things, it's the thing that kids come to learn in college, you know, when you're getting high in a dorm room, is that you're not the first person to have had these deep thoughts. Like, you're not the first person to have navigated these waters, even though it might feel like that. You need more experience out in the world, because guess what? There are other people going through similar shit as you, other people who have been through the same shit as you. And like, it behooves you to better understand other people in this case. Yeah.
I think we hit the...
Sorry, I realized we got on such a tangent.
Oh, it's fine. We can do it. If you're fine with it, we can make it a special extended episode. I mean, it's a time for great jubilation. You've got clout, and I'm going to leech off of you.
I have a slight amount of clout. I just hit 10K followers on Twitter.
Hey. Well,
which is how we are. Very.
You know how we people
that has been the very surreal part of all this. Is I say all this is like the last year, because I really had no internet presence this time last year, but like really before the end of June.
I mean, you were doing documentaries at that time, right?
Yeah, I was doing documentaries, and like my entire channel, you go back before the church video, it was all video game stuff. Yeah. It was all.
And I don't want to call you. I at one point I had in the intro in one of the drafts, I wrote ethical gaming journalist, and it's like, I don't want to be dismissive of the journalism that you did, because there's no way I talk about it, but you did impressive. Well, you do impressive journalism, I'm saying, within the gaming sphere. Your background is quite impressive journalism within that sphere.
Thank you. Thank you. I spent, goddamn, I've lost track of the years, but I spent about 7 or 8 years working my way up from just like writing on like small no-name blogs to, I had an internship at Game Informer magazine in Minneapolis, and then I kind of worked my way up to one of the senior editors at Rely on Horror before incredibly bizarre development where I worked with my local news station, and we tried to create our own gaming outlet, and that had to be shuttered after 2 years because of COVID. And that was a whole strange nightmare that got me editing video and put me on the track to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I think that you've improved a lot in your videos, but those old videos, like when I was preparing, like knowing that we were gonna make content together, like I consider myself a fan of your work. I tune into streams every now and then. I watch.
Oh, thank you.
I watch your major recent projects, but I hadn't checked out the backlog, and people check it out. if you're into gaming, it's like just as good as your newer shit. Like,
yeah, I really loved, and I figured, I had hoped, and this goes to how fucking hard it is to make it, you know, as a YouTuber, is I had hoped that doing these, because what I did, you're right, I did do documentaries where I would essentially take a cult classic game of some shade, or maybe an underappreciated game, and I would go and track down, always tried to get between 6 and 8 members of the development team, and I would interview them on camera to get a feel for how the game came together, the problems it had, the canceled ideas, like just that kind of shit. And I made like 5 feature-length documentaries like that.
I mean,
and
I watch them. It's like, how did you fucking manage it?
No, I still love those. Like, I still love those and putting them together. I started on a new one, back in fall of this year.
Exclusive announcement on the Composting podcast.
Yeah.
This just in.
Well, I have interviewed, I think I interviewed 3 people, and then I just hadn't followed up with a couple others because I've been working on these projects. Let me tell you about the docket I put down. Mm-hmm. The Satanic Temple video that just came out today, that video I started planning in November. And
wow, that's a quick turnaround.
In December I spent basically all of December working on a video on Spider-Man, or broadly it's about Spider-Man, but it is more about how the modern movement around games and media will try and use like anti-wokeness, despite not understanding the media they're consuming. So it is about Spider-Man, but it's about more than that.
That mod site where they
I did in a separate video. We did talk about that. Yeah. But then after Spider-Man, like right after Spider-Man, I jackknifed into 5 weeks of doing my most intensively researched video, like will probably be my most cited video forever, on the history of anti-Semitism. And then right after that, like not even a week after that, I left for CPAC. And I was working on those videos for, I was there for a week, worked on it for another 3 weeks. And then right after that, for the last 4 weeks, I've been working pretty much full time on the Satanic Temple video.
Yeah,
and so like
your output is insane. Like,
I try.
The history of anti-Semitism video is one of the best video essays I've seen on YouTube. It felt like I was at an academic conference. Like, that felt like
oh, thank you.
Like the level of research you were at.
I was very lucky with that one to have a member of my community connect me with one of the managers of a Holocaust Memorial Museum. Yeah, in San Francisco. Yedida Canfor helps to run the Holocaust Memorial Museum down there. And I wanted to get an interview, and that wasn't able to happen, but she did. This is somebody who like has a doctorate, who has been studying for years and years, college educated. And when she got back to me, she read through my script and gave me some of the highest praise that I received. Just saying that like she was so impressed by the level of detail and depth, and she felt like it was something that she could have done.
It felt like a doctoral thesis.
Yeah, and that's like, that is the level of like depth and proof that I do try and aim. That's part of why everything takes so damn long. But it is.
As someone who struggles to maintain a weekly upload schedule of their shitty podcast, like, I see your output, I'm like, how? Do you have like 26-hour days or something? Like,
no, it's less about that, because I do have kind of lazy days, but I am constantly juggling. It's part of doing this full time has been both a blessing and a curse, because I am like it is making content work so well with my ADHD brain because there's always something new I can be doing, whether it's I need to do research on this, I need to sit down and watch this video. Sometimes actually research can be, I don't want to say super easy because I pause and do timestamps and stuff, but sometimes it's just putting on a video. Like when I did my videos on Matt Walsh, I put on like 50 plus hours of Matt Walsh content in the background and just played it at 2x speed while I was playing video games. And then if I heard a good sound clip or I heard something I wanted to come back to, I'd pause the game, mark it down. But I'm, like that's part of the process.
If you heard him say I love and then say Hitler 2 hours later, you're like, got it. Clip it.
But like that kind of variety, because sometimes that's what a workday can look like for a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's, like the last week or so, my editing days are between, 6 and 8 hours if I'm really pushing through. And then sometimes it's even different from that, where I'm recording. I do podcasts like this. I can stream. I'm making stream highlights. I'm one of my favorite things to do is to get different graphics and stuff assembled, and like just try and find new visuals that can kind of complement things. And it's so on one hand it's really nice because there's something, it's not like working, any of the worst jobs I've ever worked where I'm just bored out of my mind doing the same thing for hours and hours. I can just stop. I can work on a different project for a little bit or pursue something else. On the other hand, that means there's always stuff to do, and B, I'm always working, essentially.
Hassan, I saw he gave a really good, he got canceled for it, but he gave he had a good segment about this where it's like, it's a hard, like content creation's a hard thing, but it's also a dream job, but it's difficult.
No, it really, like, you gotta be, like, when my first church infiltration video popped off, I was kind of, sorry, my dog is whining for attention right now. You're fine.
Hit it.
I see you.
Hit it.
Do not.
Oh, no, I mean, actually, oh my God.
I'm gonna put you in the kitchen if you don't stop it.
Me when women are arguing.
You can come get pets. Be good. Come here. Sorry, what was? Oh yeah. When I first kind of started doing this full time, like when the first church infiltration video blew up, it skyrocketed my channel in a way that nothing has, before or since. And it was like looking at this idea of like, okay, is this enough to actually make a living on? Can I keep doing this? And so it was from there, it was just several months of working as hard as I could on other big research projects like the Matt Walsh video, starting up streaming, like just trying to throw anything I could at the wall and see what would stick. And I got incredibly lucky.
And honest to God, I think you're before your blow up. Like when I think like who's going to be like the next big video essayist, it's you. Because you have such a great back catalog that genuinely, you just need like 2 more hits and then you're on top. Because you have such a great back catalog of content that your audience can look back at.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I am hoping that ultimately pays off when if I ever get big enough, that me actually doing, because I love doing this I still do them every now and again, this video game series I do ranking shooters from the Xbox 360 era.
That's awesome.
Where essentially I do 3 games every episode, and the episodes are like 20 to 25 minutes, and I have like 13 or 14 episodes now, and it's so funny because they get no play compared to like any political video or even stream highlights I do. Like they get views sub 6,000, and I can put out like a boring stream highlights and that'll do 20 to 30 if it's bad, or if it just hits at a bad time. So like they do nothing compared to my normal views, but it's this fascinating thing where every time one of them comes out, the rest of them, all the other like 15, 16 episodes or however many there are, get an uptick because people will just watch and binge the whole series, which is fascinating to me. Yeah.
Like, we had an episode come out on Punishment Park, a 1971 indie film, and it quote unquote blew up from our perspective, meaning we got 60 YouTube views in the first day. So, and that's that means it's hitting.
No, yeah, like it's so.
And we saw that like everything else
I,
people started looking at. It's.
No, that it's like it really just starts with 1 or 2 views to get you going, and it's such a weird thing because you never know what's going to hit. Like the anti-Semitism video did not do, the Spider-Man video and anti-Semitism did not do as well as I wanted.
Didn't do well, which I think genuinely, I think that you should use that script at an academic conference. Genuinely, I'd encourage you to do that because it's a fantastic script. In my opinion, that's the best video on your channel.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think it is also, it hits this weird middle ground where I resolve, like there are very few, usually like even in the Satanic Temple, I'm not like super jokey, but I try and lighten it up a little bit. You know, I try and be a little more jovial, like throw in a joke where I see it. And the anti-Semitism one is like I didn't even appear on camera. Well, I didn't. I chose purposely to not appear on camera. I like toned down the jokes massively. And when you do that, you're just left with like several hundreds of years of like torture and oppression and abuse. Yeah. So I think it was also like there's something to be said for the difficulty of the subject matter, which I've never shied away from, like any difficult subject matter.
I have a lot of respect for the trajectory that you're on in terms of like obviously it's your job, so of course you have to do shit that's gonna hit the algorithm, but you've always maintained this nice balance of doing academic pursuits that fascinate you, shit that hits the algorithm, and like your personal interest in gaming and stuff like that.
Well, and that's part of the struggle is that like I still don't, I always feel like I kind of have a grasp on like, okay, what are people coming to my channel for? What are people engaging with? And I figured, thankfully, the CPAC videos would do well because, you know, the first videos to blow up my channel were the church infiltration videos, and a lot of my political content, like the PragerU video and the Matt Walsh videos, did very well. So I'm like, okay, kind of combining the two, and those did very well.
I mean, that's why I introduced you the way that I did, because I figured, what will people know her for? Well,
yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing I am most known for, and I'm very proud of those videos still and how they turned out.
To be known for, might I add, like.
Thank you.
Like, I want to be clear. Those videos are bangers, and it's fucking, that's cool as shit. Like, as a story.
I appreciate it. And yeah, I am just, I think I know the stories that I want to pursue next. I am going to take, just because, like I mentioned, I've been working kind of nonstop on really big projects since December. So I am going to take a month off. I have a novel that I want to edit through and finish. I have a script I want to write. Like I have other stuff I kind of want to do.
You're a modern day Renaissance non-binary.
I kind of am, like, I don't know. I've done so many different things. I was a theater kid in high school.
Oh, never mind. I take back all the compliments. Get them out of here. Get them out of here.
Well, no, because I I started as a singer in choir class, and we went to All State and All Northwest and all that stuff. And then from there, I started doing drama. And then after high school, I did neither of those again. And I just started writing. So it was this really harsh pivot from arts and performance to just writing and journalism. And over time, somehow all of those things have become entwined again for me. And it's just, I've picked up little skills along the way that, I kind of can, like I make, and they're not amazing, kind of partially on purpose, but like I make all my own thumbnails. You know, I make almost all of the graphics for the channel and stuff outside of Lamb Chop, the little Baphomet mascot, who is drawn by the wonderful Kelly Dean Verity. So go give, by the way, anybody watching, go give Kelly a follow on Instagram and Twitter, because they do amazing work. But it is weird having, like, when people ask, what do you do? Like, how it's still weird telling people that, I'm a YouTuber, or I'm a streamer. Like, I do the job that everybody's 10-year-old says they want to do. Yeah.
And this has become my job, not because I want it to be, but because at the restaurant I used to work at, the store owner sexually harassed me and then stopped giving me hours. So I had to quit. Lovely guy. Great guy. I love Italian cuisine. But, it's tricky to put, a lot of faith into, Tricky.
It definitely is, especially as like a trans person. But I think there's almost that, because I've similarly, it didn't come with sexual harassment, but I have been, just like slow drip feed, given less hours over time until I didn't have any hours and I wasn't able to work. And it came down to, I think also at my last job, like, I have no proof, but I felt like discrimination may have played a part in that. Yeah. And kind of being your own boss in this space, it is both, like everything else, there's good and the bad, but the good is that you can build these bridges and these communications with other queer creators, other creators who are like you. It's so, one of the weirdest aspects of this is that I still, like, I just see myself as somebody kind of fiddling around trying to, like, figure all this shit out, and I still don't know what I'm doing half the time.
Like, I joked that you had clout, and then you got all embarrassed.
Yeah, like I'm bottom. Like, somebody saying I have clout is, like, so fucking funny to me. But being able to talk, and it's weird thinking about other content creators in a way as like my coworkers, because we'll talk about issues and collaborate and set up times and appointments to collab on stuff. And so, like, these video creators who I've been watching and who have inspired me for years and years, people like Jesse Gender and Kaylin Conrad and Fundy Fridays and Savvy Writes Books, like these people who I've been, like, they've become part of my media diet, are now, like, I'm like, they are talking to me like I'm an equal. And so it's just this, like, surreal kind of area, but I know that is part of, like, building those queer connections and building those inroads with other people and their communities that you can do when you take this on as a job. Yeah.
And obviously I'm looking for work right now because but in the meantime, patreon.com/compostingpod. Check it out. But can I get a soundbite of you saying patreon.com/compostingpod?
Yes. Patreon.com/compostingpod.
Oh, yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how a lot of Olive, that's how I feel about you and a couple of the other people who agreed to come onto the show and will be coming on in the near future, which is exciting. But it's a very weird space because nobody thinks that they're anybody, but everybody else thinks that they're like these colossal titans, you know?
Oh yeah.
Which makes it
it's
strange.
Like I feel like there's this there's this dissonance between how a lot of people perceive themselves and how they're perceived. Because again, like I have like 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I just crossed 5 million views. And I still see and relatively, I'm a very small fish in a very big pond still. But you also chalk that up to like, okay, but 5 million people. And they're, obviously repeat viewers. I have a whole bunch of videos, but like 5 million people at one point or another. Yeah, like have decided to sit down and watch me talk about shit. And that is like, that's weird to fucking think about. I got recognized back in, that is a fucking head trip. Getting recognized in public is fucking bonkers. I am absolutely not ready for that.
Yeah. What's funny is that in our profile picture, the jacket that I'm drawn in is the jacket I go around in every day. So if we ever blow up, people might end up recognizing me because of the jacket, which is scary.
The iconic jacket.
The iconic jacket. Yeah.
To use some Ubisoft marketing parlance.
Before I forget, our classic out of 30 point scale, what would you give First Reformed out of 15 points?
Oh, 50. I think this is... I don't think there's anything such as a perfect film, but for what it sets out to do and how well it accomplishes that, I think it is such a well-crafted film. It is so well considered in a way that is intimate, but still all-consuming. Like every aspect of it feels crafted, like feels intentional and made by hand in its kind of intimacy and message. From like the acting to the writing to the just like the bleak beats of dark comedy throughout. Like I think it is it's a film that speaks to me on so many levels. And yeah, I think it's just hell of a movie. Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 13 out of 15. This movie was absolutely incredible. I don't think it was a perfect film, but goddamn is it close.
That's pretty damn good.
So that's a 28 out of 30, which is pretty good. We'll put that in the official chart. You'll take Joku's place. My dead co-host, may she rest in peace.
Rip. Yeah. Sorry, workplace accident.
They didn't get a workplace accident, by the way. It was a lie.
Oh, you were. Oh, that was a
just
joke.
A lead into the speeding ticket.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. My bad. I'm glad that I'm putting this in around the 1 hour 40 minute mark, so that way people think that she's sick. That's funny.
This is like an end credit scene. Like you have to stay the whole time to get the full picture.
Yeah. Before you go, I did have one more question. The fucking, I forgot the name of the church again.
Oh, Sure Foundation.
New International.
New Independent Fundamental Baptist.
So dumb.
Yeah. I know it.
Have any of those freaks like tried to make contact with you again?
I did end up being contacted by, and I did a interview with Steven Anderson's son, who is a Nazi. He is a self-professed Nazi.
Great guy.
Yeah.
What a nice dude. Apple won't fall too far, does it?
No, and that was that caused a little bit of a controversy with people who's like, "Oh, you're platforming Nazi." It's like, am I?
Come on,
really though? Like I didn't. I like we very specifically agreed to not talk about politics beforehand and his personal beliefs.
I like how you
we were literally just
to like
talking.
Sorry. I was gonna say, I like how you lead into this interview with, this is a Nazi and the son of the hate preacher that I made 2 hour-and-a-half long videos on and about why he's bad. And now we're going to criticize him. I like how people take that as like, oh my God, you're giving him a platform to spread his message.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of knew it was coming, but I still had to be like, come on, like really, you after everything I've done. Anyway, outside of Isaac, who is the Anderson's son, no, they've mostly stayed. And I haven't kept watching because for a while there I was like not obsessively, but I was watching most of their new broadcasts because they kept mentioning me. They kept saying stuff about me that I was just like, I would sit back and giggle at.
Yeah. That's such great entertainment.
It like they got so mad, but no, they nobody's tried doing anything. I'm willing to bet, because they did say in one of their sermons that they were going to look into legal action, and I'm willing to bet that any lawyer would have looked at that and been like, well, did you have a sign on your sidewalk saying all welcome?
Dude, and
they would have been like, yeah.
If they tried any legal action, I guarantee you, like, that would be the biggest slam dunk for you. Every leftist content creator would make a video about it. You would make a GoFundMe legal fund that would pop off, and then you would win the case. Like, that would not end well for them.
No, I think... and that's the other thing that I'm currently most worried about with the the Satanic Temple video is just the... like, they are an incredibly litigious group, but I have covered my ass so well with the sources and evidence I provided that I hope anybody who would be inclined to suing would be like, actually, like, they have so many sources already that, you know, like, no court would be like, yeah, you have a good case.
Defamation and libel trials in the U.S. are just so hard to win anyway, you know?
Yeah, and I am thankful so often that we are not a degenerate hellhole like the UK, where a rich person can just be like, oh, they hurt my fifis, and a poor working class family has to, you know, like, it's unfucking believable the libel laws they have there.
I hope Scotland secedes, dude. I think that Scotland, Ireland, and Wales should make their own United Kingdom without England in it. That's why I think.
I agree. I think, yeah, I wish, I love my trans British brothers and
critical
sisters,
support
and
to trans British people.
And there are
hatred of everyone else in the UK.
There are good people, like, everywhere in all countries and cultures, but also
what?
Like, largely fuck Britain, man.
So
like,
true.
Just
what a wretched. Dude, did you see it? Cass came back and was like,
oh yeah, said that she couldn't go anywhere in public.
She came back and said that they should start doing HRT earlier.
Great. Rad.
No, she came out with like a radically pro-trans position and is now trying to grift back to being a trans ally. And trying to act like she was a trans ally the whole time. It's crazy. I guess that she's trying to prevent her medical license from being revoked or whatever, but...
Yeah, that would probably be best.
Yeah. It's wild. Before we close it off...
But yeah.
First up, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
Sure. And is there anything that you would like to plug?
I guess just go sub to the YouTube and follow on Twitch. I try and do weekly streams. I've been trying to get better about doing community game nights with the Discord chat. And I cover on Twitch and everything. I cover modern politics and goings on, and I've been playing more games and stuff lately. And on the YouTube channel, like we've talked about everything I do here. I've done plenty of documentary work and long, in-depth video essays, and if you're down for that kind of thing, go check out Dead Domain.
Yeah. If you like our shit, you'll like that shit. And because I'm sure we're gonna get more than 40 people watching this one. I'm Rosa. I'm host of the Composting Podcast. I host it with my co-host Joku, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. However, pretty much every Thursday, we watch a movie and we talk about it on the show. It's on YouTube and all podcast platforms, and we're starting to branch out to non-podcast video as well, which you're going to see some of those coming up on the YouTube channel. And we have a Patreon. Give me money.
Go give them money.
Or else. That has been Composting. Thank you for listening. And Dead Domain, any advice for these people to live their lives by?
Oh, good God.
It's the ending stinger. I should have given you context. We're gonna run that back. And okay. Dead Domain.
Is there?
You just say something wacky, and then the music plays.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it. Cut that out, but don't actually cut it out. Leave this in the edit, because it's funnier if I say cut it out, and then we don't cut it out. You got me? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Dead Domain. Any advice for these lovely people to leave or live their lives by?
Oh, it's okay to play with toys well into your 30s, as long as you're not putting any of them in jars.
As long as you're not gay. Thanks for listening.
That too.